Here's a B-26 taxiing into position. She's got a limit look, and she carries it like a lady. Here she comes. Now watch this takeoff. A hot ship, plenty tricky, they've said about the B-26. But look at her get off the ground, load and all. She's like a fine racehorse, fast and sensitive. She's especially sensitive in two respects, weight and balance. But properly loaded, a B-26 that is neither nose-heavy, tail-heavy, nor overloaded, can fly rings around just about any bomber in the air. The airplane must be loaded so as to keep the CG location within safe limits at all times, otherwise she'd never bank like this. She does so because every factor has been considered, including change in balance caused by fuel consumption, expending bombs and ammunition, movement of crew, and cargo changes. If a pilot neglects weight and balance control, he'll find that at takeoff or during part of his flight, he will not be flying true. Instead of a balanced center of gravity, he will have an off center of gravity, causing his plane to become unstable. This pilot's coming into a perfect landing. Looks easy, doesn't it? It is easy, because the plane's CG is just where it should be, because the pilot knows loading procedure. Always make sure that your plane is not overloaded and that the CG is not too far forward. If it is, you may find the takeoff run is greater than the available runway. Ask Wilbur Wrong there. He knows. Or the center of gravity may be so far aft that the airplane is tail-heavy. Control will be difficult, possibly dangerous. You might get off, but may be unable to raise the tail to maintain flying speed. Result, the plane stalls and spins in.
Sad sack.
And when there is too little elevator power left to make the landing flare, the landing load on the nose gear may exceed its design strength. Furthermore, an improper center of gravity position may cut down the speed and range of your airplane.
Get a horse!
The first step in ascertaining the basic CG is to weigh the airplane. The pilot is carefully checking the weighing job, which is done after the plane has been leveled at 3 points: the nose wheel, the right main wheel, and the left main wheel. At the left main wheel, he finds the weight to be 13,686 pounds. He has already checked the weights at the nose wheel and right main and is now ready to determine the total. As he goes along, he explains the procedure step by step to a young lieutenant just up from two-engine school. This 3-point weighing gives them a poundage from which they must subtract the weight of the jacks and any residual oil and fuel. From this final figure, the plane's basic weight, they will be able to calculate the basic center of gravity. To accomplish this, reference must first be made to a suitable balance datum. This is an imaginary vertical line, usually near the nose of the plane. The B-26 datum line is exactly 15.306 inches behind the tip of the nose. The horizontal distance in inches of any item from this line we call its arm. A moment ago, you saw a B-26 being weighed. A figure in pounds was obtained at the nose wheel, the right main and left main wheels. By multiplying the weight at each of these points by its arm, we get a product in inch pounds. These inch pounds, the result of weight times arm, we call a moment. Well, the first step is to add up the net weights at nose wheel, right main wheel, left main wheel in one column. And to the right of this column, add up the inch pounds calculated at each station. Here is how it will look when we're done. Thus, In one column, we have totaled the airplane's basic weight, and in the other column, the total inch-pounds, which constitute the basic airplane balance moment. To locate our airplane's center of gravity, we divide the total inch-pounds by the airplane's total weight. This tells us, in inches, how far the center of gravity is from the datum line. The B-26 airplane has normal forward limits and rearward or aft limits for loading. If these limits are exceeded, the airplane becomes unsafe to fly. This range of CG movement becomes smaller as the total weight increases during loading. Look in your tech order for the loading limits in inches from the datum line as they apply to different gross weights. The loaded ship's CG must fall within these limits at takeoff, in the air, and on landing. Let's take some typical items of cargo: bombs, gasoline, tools, and ammunition. For convenience sake, we'll refer to these items simply as A, B, C, and D. Item A, for example, has both a weight in pounds and a proper loading position in the plane, which may be measured in inches from the datum line. Knowing this, we load it into the plane. Items B, C, and D are similarly loaded, their weight and arm noted. We next add the combined weight of our cargo items to the airplane's basic weight. The sum of these gives us the ship's new gross weight. And in a similar manner, we add up the inch-pounds of each load item and add the sum of these to the previously determined basic airplane balance moment, which gives us our new balance moment. Let's call our new balance moment K and our new gross weight X. By dividing K by X, we find our new center of gravity. The principle is the same regardless of what items we are loading or taking out of our plane. As long as we know our ship's basic weight and balance moment to begin with, we can add or subtract the weight and arm of each item of load and then obtain our new total weight and CG location. And once this is calculated, we again examine the chart in our TO to find if this falls within the forward and aft limits for the new total weight. A few moments ago on the apron outside the hangar, we saw a flight leader of the 332nd Bomb Group showing a new lieutenant how to weigh his B-26. Thus, the lieutenant took the first practical step toward keeping his plane properly loaded and balanced. Suppose we let the captain explain the procedure that follows.
Hang up your cap, Lieutenant. Here we go. Sit down. Now that you know how to weigh your ship, I'm going to introduce you to your load adjuster. This little gadget of laminated machine plastic can be a pretty good friend. Sort of a mathematical wet nurse. Keep you right side up and healthy.
Kind of a slide rule?
That's right. Now, when we weighed your ship in out there, you got its basic weight and basic center of gravity. These are translated into something called the basic index.
Now, the basic index represents the upsetting moment of the empty airplane, plus minimum fixed equipment, before any variable load is added.
But you don't go on a mission with an empty airplane. You've got to carry a load, often limit load. Now, starting with your basic index,
The hairline is moved every time you figure in a new item of weight. Each new index, as seen under the hairline, represents a new upsetting moment of the airplane. And the hairline's position, with respect to the loading limits, shows how the loading is coming along as each new weight is added.
Follow me so far?
No, sir.
I know. Weight and balance for the first time's like flying into your first fall. But don't worry, Lieutenant. It'll get thicker. Then it'll lift. Now let me show you on that model.
In a way, that slide rule you're looking at represents an actual B-26. Of course, this isn't the latest model, but the same procedure applies to all B-26s. When your indicator moves to the left, so does the plane's upsetting moment, tending to tip the nose down. When the load adjuster shows an index to the right, that tells you that her tail is getting heavy.
I suppose the red and yellow sections on top of the rule represent danger signals of some sort.
You guessed it. The best index is between them, smack in the center of the loading range. The indicator hairline should fall somewhere near this point for ideal loading.
And the yellow section?
The yellow indicates your caution range. When the hairline ends up there, it is allowable, but undesirable, because of the tendency toward nose or tail heaviness. Center slide has scales for items of load that may change for different kinds of flights.
Like bombs, ammunition, or gasoline?
Starting each scale on the slide is a vertical line with an arrow which shows the direction the hairline is to be moved. Moving it in this direction to a desired point on the scale measures the tail or nose-heavy tendency of an item's weight, assuming, of course, that the item is loaded at its designated location. Incidentally, Lieutenant, you remember what moments are, don't you?
How could I forget? Let's see, a moment is the product of a weight multiplied by its arm.
Roger. Now look here. On your load adjuster, each scale represents moments, or the effective weight placed in a given location. Every time you set off an item on the adjuster, you automatically add in its moment. The index scale on the bottom here keeps the total.
Well, the ceiling's a little higher, sir. But the takeoff bothers me. Where do you get your basic index? I don't see any scale for the empty airplane.
Well, that's easy. Now, when we weighed your airplane, you got its basic weight and CG location, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all we need to figure out the basic or starting index on the load adjuster. For this little operation, we use the back of the moving slide. You can pull out the slide and turn it over. Now, let's see. What was your plane's basic weight?
Oh, I've got it written down here. The basic weight came to 23,860 pounds.
The basic moment?
5,702,751 inch-pounds.
Good. Now we got something to start with. Let's go to your load adjuster. Move the indicator until the hairline is directly over the arrow at 0 index.
Okay, I've got it.
Good. Now move the slide. Not the indicator, but the slide, until the basic weight of 23,860 pounds is under the hairline.
23,860 pounds she is.
Next, move the indicator until the hairline is over the exact moment. On this scale, figures are of the moment divided by 1,000 pounds. So instead of 5,702,751 inch-pounds, it is the figure 5,703 you will look for.
Got it?
Check. Now take a look at your index scale. What gives under the indicator hairline?
I get 16.8, sir.
Good work. And don't forget it. It's the basic index of your ship. Just to make sure that you don't forget it, that figure together with 23,860, which is your plane's basic weight, is recorded on the card on your load adjuster's carrying case. That's the little card in the celluloid window. Take it out and write down those figures.
Okay, sir. Where do we go from here?
Well, now we go to... Well, let's go get a drink. You look confused and I'm a little thirsty.
Come on in and take a load off your feet. I'm going to put a load in your plane. This is a sample list of cargo and crew that might go into a B-26. This is broken down into crew, baggage, armament, bombs, gasoline, and oil to be distributed to loading stations in the nose, pilot's compartment, deck turret, camera turret, and tail. We know your basic index to be 16.8. So before we start figuring out the effect of the various loads, move the indicator hairline over 16.8 on the index scale. Here, Lieutenant, suppose you work it out on the adjuster. Well, I'll give you the procedure and check the results. First, turn over the slide. You got it? 16.8.
16.8, sir.
Now, on this theoretical trip, you'll be carrying 42 U.S. gallons of oil. Now, move the slide until the vertical starting line of the oil scale is under the hairline. Then, move your indicator left until the hairline is over 42 on U.S. gallons oil scale. The index should now read 15.8. Our indicator's in the red area, which shows the plane is still nose heavy. We've only started loading. With the rest of the cargo, we'll level her off. Our loading list says we're carrying 465 U.S. gallons of gasoline. Now move the slide until the gasoline scale starting line is under the indicator hairline. Now move your indicator to the right on the gasoline scale until it's over 465 U.S. gallons. In adding this gasoline to your load, you have acquired an index reading of 21.4. Not so nose heavy.
21.4 it is.
Now we move our slide until the vertical starting line of the Bombay scale is under the indicator hairline.
We move the indicator now until the hairline is over 2,348 on the forward Bombay scale. This is the weight of 20 rounds of 100-pound bombs with shackles to go in the forward Bombay. The index reading should be 23.7, but we still have more bombs to load. 10 rounds of 100-pound bombs with shackles to go into the rear bay. So we move the indicator until the hairline is over 1,219 pounds on the rear Bombay scale. Your index reading should now be 37.4, out of the red.
Got it?
You can see, Lieutenant, that our oil, gasoline, and bomb loads have substantially changed the balance of our airplane.
Now we move the slide of the load adjuster until the vertical starting line of the
Station load scale is under the indicator hairline. Move the indicator until the hairline is over 39 on the nose station scale. This adds 600 rounds of 30 caliber ammunition, totaling 39 pounds, at the nose station. This is marked A on your scale. The index reading should be 36.5.
I think, sir, I'm onto the general procedure. Next, I believe we'd weigh in the loads in each compartment.
That's right.
Starting with the pilot's compartment, or Station B, 2 pilots at 200 pounds each.
Okay, load your 2 men totaling 400 pounds at the pilot station.
That brings my index to 30.2. Now, the crew members at C, the radio and navigator station, loads on 380 more pounds, bringing the index to 27.1.
That's right. Now, your next station load is weighed in on F scale, the deck turret.
In here go a gunner, 170 pounds. 400 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition, 120 pounds. 600 rounds of 30 caliber ammunition, 39 pounds. These total 329 pounds altogether.
Now the index reads 33.6.
You can see that you're progressively leveling your ship by placing the loads toward the tail. Now, the next loads also to go aft should do the trick.
Now, at camera station G, your special emergency equipment is loaded. This weighs 235 pounds, giving you an index of
40.5.
Finally, we load 200 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition, weighing 60 pounds in the tail station, which is H scale.
Bringing my index to 42.7. But wait a minute. Don't we have to check the total weight of the plane, including the items just added?
Oh, you certainly do, Lieutenant, but not with the load adjuster. We have to add up the total weight separately.
Here, I've done it for you. What's your final index read?
42.7.
You'll notice that the hairline is considerably to the right of the 1,200 pounds mark on the rear bomb load scale at the top of the rule.
I see, Captain, that we have a much wider loading range with no load in the rear bomb bay. How come?
When you load bombs in the rear bay, your index moves to the right considerably. Therefore, when you drop them, it'll move just as far back to the left. And if you don't look out, you'll be in the red, nose-heavy range.
I see. And that yellow section warns me that expending the load will move the index outside the safe limits.
That's right. Well, how do you like the care and feeding of the B-26? Had enough?
You mean there's more?
Plenty. The paperwork, Lieutenant. Now, every pilot keeps a diary.
Oh, one question, sir.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll be carrying gasoline in the bomb bays instead of bombs. Then what?
Your load would then be added up by means of the Bombay scale marked in pounds. You allow 6 pounds for every U.S. gallon of gas.
Check. But suppose after loading, the CG doesn't fall within the allowable loading range.
I was afraid of that, Lieutenant. You're catching on. Take your load adjuster and work out your crew change.
Our final index was 42.7.
Okay, now that your hairline indicator is over that mark, move the slide until the navigator radio mark on the crew change scale is under the hairline.
I've got it.
Next, move the indicator until the hairline is over the camera mark. What index do you get?
49.4.
Well, Lieutenant, that means that the navigator at the navigator radio station should move back to the camera station, thus placing the index within the non-restricted range. And one more thing. It's important to know what happens when you use up some of your expendable load. Supposing you want to know how she balances after burning 215 gallons of gas. You start with your last index, which was 49.4, then move the slide until the 465 gallons on the gasoline scale is under the hairline. The total gallons originally loaded. If you've burned 215, you've got 250 left. So move the indicator until the hairline is over the 250 gallon mark. Now read your index.
46.8.
Which is a good enough index. And here's your diary, Lieutenant. Check order number 01-1-40.
Weight and balance data, B-26.
Number 01-1-40 enables you to apply and keep track of your knowledge of weight and balance. And here in the front is a summary of weight and balance fundamentals. And here's a record sheet of your initial airplane weighing with space for scale readings, arm, moment, and index. You can fill it in later. And here's chart A. It's a basic weight checkoff list for all fixed and operating equipment, such as machine guns, cameras, and anything weighing 5 pounds or more. Each has a definite location in the airplane at all times. When the plane is delivered, the manufacturer enters these items in groups according to department location.
I guess it's my job to keep it up to date, right?
Right. And when you add an item to or subtract it from the airplane, you make note of this transaction on chart C. This is a permanent running record of the airplane's weight and balance, both fixed and operating equipment in place. Whenever such equipment is added or removed, it should be entered on chart A for checking purposes, and also on this chart C with weight and moment added to or subtracted from the previous total.
Sort of like double entry bookkeeping, eh?
Exactly like it. Chart C will give you your most recent balance to date. That is, the current weight, moment, and index of the airplane. Sometimes there are some structural changes or replacements of major items, such as tires, engines, and armor plate, but they should be checked on another chart, B. And when entering these chart B items on your chart C, along with changes of non-structural equipment, figure out whether or not your plane's basic index has changed. If it has, mark the new index on the carrying case identification card of your load adjuster. This chart D is an auxiliary record used for supply or cargo items not accounted for elsewhere. They generally vary for each flight and have no normal installation location.
Like the General's crate of oranges that I loaded at the last minute?
That's it. You compute their weight, moment, and effect on the CG location in the customary manner and include them on the form F, which is a weight and balance clearance. It controls the variable load items of the airplane, such as cargo, crew, gasoline, ammunition, and bombs. It is filled out in duplicate by the crew chief, weight and balance officer, or pilot, and is checked by operations for each flight. The non-expendable and the expendable items are separately grouped so that a weight and balance for landing may be determined.
So I'll be filling out Form Fs before each flight.
If you know what's good for you, Lieutenant. With the B-26, the main thing is to keep weight and balance conscious. Never take any chances. Don't take chances even when you're in a hurry. Even when you're on some DS flight to your hometown. Now she's yours to love on her and keep balance for the duration. How would you like to go out and take her upstairs?
I've been waiting for you to say that all afternoon.
If you enjoyed today's video and would like to see more content like this, be sure to take a shot at the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest BirdDogg content.